So Mike Field, thanks so much for coming on episode 2 of the Sales and Sports podcast. This is episode 2. It's great to have another parent and another huge success story from the program on. Mike, tell us who you are. How did you get into tech sales? What are you doing at the moment? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Pleasure to be here. Joined Entr Tech in, I think, August 2022. Graduated in about October. When I say graduated, got a job in October. So I started interviewing quite early in the year. All went pretty well in the interviews, but obviously, as with any industry you're trying to break into, got some no's, and especially with sales, get used to getting no's. They will get you closer to a yes. I went through interviews, managed to land a job on, I think, the 5th day of being a dad. My daughter was like 2 days old, and I was doing the last round of interviews, borrowing a shirt from my uncle because we were staying in their little Airbnb that they've got with a newborn, and panicking because I didn't have an iron to sort it out. We managed to land a job with a company called Airfocus, a German product management platform. And yeah, since then has been a really, really growth-orientated year and a half. Learned a lot, changed a lot, improved myself in more ways than I can count. And I think that's a huge part of working in sales, is it really sort of pushes you to become a version of yourself that's able to be more resilient and harder working and more organized and more disciplined. And you go through the fire. I think anyone that starts out in SaaS, you're going to realize that you're probably going to start, working 8 hours and then 9 hours and then 10 hours and then 12 hours and then realize that you're totally burnt out and then strip it all back. But I think, unlike a lot of other roles that I've had, it really feels like continual evolution, which is why I enjoy it so much.
Love that. There's so much to unpack there. Like, I completely forgot you were staying at your uncle's house, and I swear you're in the north of England and in the south, and you had a baby on the way. You were trying to interview at the same time. There's so much going on. And I know it was I can't even imagine my brothers. My brother and his wife, they're having a baby in a month's time. I can already tell he's super stressed. Can't imagine what it was like to go through, career change and also moving around different locations and things like that. So I guess, do you mind taking a step back and just telling the story of what you were doing before tech sales? Because I think that's super cool. Like, your journey from teaching to, I'll let you do the full story, but I guess you had a real drive to get out of your last job before tech sales. So yeah, do you mind opening it up and giving the full background and picture to how you came to Entr Tech and thought about getting into tech sales?
Yeah, so I left uni. I got a sports science degree from Loughborough University. Went to uni doing sports science, wanted to be an athlete. Quickly realised I was going to be sat behind a computer somewhere looking at a fucking screen, which did not interest me. Funnily enough, I love doing it now. That I would just be in like basically a corporate job that was boring, that I didn't want to do. So left that, went and started teaching in a school as a PE teacher for I think I was there for about a month before I booked a one-way ticket to Australia, and decided I've had enough of this. Went to Australia, traveled around for about 7.5 years, lived in Vietnam for 3.5 years, all over Southeast Asia, North Africa, Europe, and then came back to the UK, found out that, so this is when COVID happened. So I was actually teaching English in Vietnam for 3.5 years. Started a business that didn't go that well, but learned a lot from it, and sort of did a little bit of sales there, trying to sell services, and realized, wow, this is actually something that I really enjoy. Really competitive, lots of like psychology based stuff. So found that really interesting, but just sort of put it on the back burner. Came back to England, got my missus pregnant, and then had this huge sort of like moment of realization when I was sort of realized I was in debt, had no career, no real income, no real way of making money from like the skills that I knew that I had. Everything I'd done previously had been like working in bars, working in restaurants, working in schools, like working in shops, call centers, just random minimum wage jobs, delivering furniture, working on farms. And realize like, okay, something's got to change. First of all, I need to fix cash flow. I need more money coming in than going out. So I got a job working for a guy who lived locally, who just like does random removals. So I was doing house removals for a few months. I was like building on his house for a few months. Then we moved up north and I got a job in a plastic factory. And it was basically 12-hour shifts, 3 days on, 3 days off. And it would alternate between day shifts and night shifts. So I do 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for 3 days, 3 days off, and then 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for 3 days, and then 3 days off. So it was just chaos. And I went and had a meal with my mate, Johnny. And he had just started working with Jack at Entr Tech and told me about this thing called SaaS sales, where you can make loads of money and you can work remotely and you can send emails and make cold calls and all these things. Were like, oh, I've done all this and I could do it better. I could definitely improve, but I enjoyed all of it. I enjoyed like the competitive nature of like, how many of my emails are getting opened? How many clicks am I getting? How many replies am I getting? How many conversations am I having that are like becoming continuations as opposed to like actually moving along a sales funnel? And I was like, all right, fuck it. Like, what have I got to lose? The plastic factory was super toxic.
Yeah.
Toxic fumes everywhere. Just in a factory. I'd have blisters all over my hands. We had like thick gloves and then welder's gloves, and I still got blisters. My whole body was knackered. I was getting like warehouse injuries, like getting concussions from hitting my head on the machinery, and just brutal. And so then obviously went through Entr Tech, and as I learned more and more about what being an SDR is, I got more and more excited and thought, I feel like this really suits me.
Yeah.
So then obviously that's how we met.
Yeah. No, that's such a cool story. Thanks for sharing. I think super gnarly, the plastics factory. I remember you saying to me, mate, I need to get out of this place because I'm going to end up probably, if I'm staying in there long term, might die, might get cancer or something, because it's actually like toxic fumes and savage. Okay. And then I guess talk me through your journey at Airfocus. So coming in as an SDR, did you feel prepared? Obviously, there's so much to learn and get up to speed with. How did you deal with the pressure of being a young parent? And maybe talk through the interview process and how you found that. But maybe, I'll let you run with it. But your early impressions of the industry, and how do you juggle, a young family and tech sales?
Yeah, so I think to give it a context on how do I juggle it, or maybe not even how do I juggle it, but how do I sort of think about juggling it, is the 6 months before she was born, I was working these crazy hours, but 6 months before that, I had all the time in the world, which you would think would mean being a really good and present father. But I was stressed about money. I couldn't do anything that I wanted to do. I couldn't buy myself a new phone. I couldn't take my family on holiday. There was nothing that I could do because I didn't have money, and money makes the world go round, right? Mm-hmm. So when I started working in SaaS, I definitely got a little bit overwhelmed with, firstly, I thought it was going to be way easier than it is, because it's not easy. And I thought when I was onboarding, when you start, you're going to go through your onboarding, you're going to have maybe 3 months where you're expected to sort of like build up your book of business and build up your skills and build up your understanding of the industry and the ICP and the persona and the problems that your solution addresses. Yeah. And I really thought that I'd be in a place where as I was onboarding, I was like, let me hit the phones. I'm ready. And then as soon as it was like, cool, you're on target now, my whole world collapsed, because I realized I don't know what to sound cold calls. I don't know what to write in emails. There was no real structure in the company that I started working for. It was very chaotic. It was like, so just go and you can speak to anyone, and we're just going to send you some inbound leads and maybe look at other people's sequences and build something off the back of that. So there was no best practices, standard operating procedures, like, so it's very chaotic, right? Typical startup world. And I sort of had this bit of a like overwhelm, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, where I realized I was working from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., maybe even later every day, because I felt like I needed to do more work. And I was so stressed. And one day I realized, like, hang on a second, I'm so stressed about the amount of work that I think I need to do, and even doubting whether or not this is for me. But if I take a step back, I've not thought about money for the last 6 months. I'm buying whatever I want whenever I want. I'm paying off all my debts. I'm in a way better financial situation. I'm actually investing money now as well. And yet I'm stressed about having to be at a job. And then I sort of like backtracked a bit and was like, how am I actually spending these 12, 13 hours a day? Or like 4 of them on LinkedIn, just pretending I'm being productive. 2 of them are listening to a podcast about sales that I'm not actually implementing. And it sort of stripped everything back and was like, oh, actually, I need to sequence a certain amount of people. I need to make a certain amount of dials. I need to stay on top of my CRM and make sure that I understand where everything is. And if I do that, I'm going to hit target. And suddenly my like 12, 13 hour day got compressed down to like 6, 7 hours. And I started hitting target, which I wasn't doing. And that to me was this huge shock of like, you know, the old adage, like you should work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
I was every day I'd finish work and say, like, babe, I've got to work another 3 hours because I've not completed everything I needed to do. Which all it then meant is I went back and sat in front of my laptop, distracted for 2.5 hours, and then panicked for the last half an hour trying to do things. And I think that's a really easy trap to fall into, especially when you're working remotely, is you set yourself up like this impossible list of tasks.
Yeah.
And you allow those tasks to expand into all the time that you've given them. And if you're not strict with that, suddenly you're sitting in front of a laptop for 9 hours a day, you're working for 2 hours a day, as opposed to sitting in front of a laptop for 6 and actually working for 6. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Because there's no timeline. It's not like you have to leave the office at a certain time, or there's less structure, you know, from the office environment. That's
that then bled into my ability to be a parent, because I couldn't spend time with my family because I needed to work. And when I did spend time with my family, I was stressed about the fact that I wasn't hitting target or whatever. So this like one little switch changed everything. I was working less hours, I was hitting target, I was getting more time with my family, which felt way less stressful. And I think that, I don't know whether everyone has to go through that sort of journey and experience it for themselves, or whether you can listen to me tell you and realize like, okay, like you're not going to, some people are going to work 80 hours a week and be total maniacs, and they're going to end up like top enterprise sellers at Oracle. Good for them. You know, not a life I want, no.
Tell me about so you're big into self-improvement. Tell me about the mindset coach you had to help you, I guess, focus on what was important and to become better in your role and in other ventures. So yeah, I'm quite intrigued to hear about that, because I know you touched upon it with the group when you spoke to some of our students last month. So yeah, I would love to touch upon that, and any other bits of advice you could give to people working remote and getting into the SDR role for the first time.
Yeah, so the first off, the advice I'd say is like, accept that, like, I know it's a sports podcast, let me give you a football example, right? When Leicester City were in League Two, I guarantee they didn't start the season and say, right, lads, this season we're going to win the FA Cup and next season we'll qualify for the Champions League. They said, like, let's aim to finish top 3 and get promoted. And then the next season they said, let's aim to finish top of the table. And then the next season said, let's aim to finish top 3 and get promoted. And just kept doing that, ticking away, like reasonable goals. And when they were in the Premier League and they won the Premier League that year, there's no way they said to themselves, right, boys, fuck City, fuck United, fuck Liverpool, we're winning this thing this year. They just focused on that one game, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get sidetracked by like, okay, it's the first of the month, I need to book 10 demos this month, or it's the first day of the quarter, I need to close 50K this quarter to hit target. Like, all you've got to do is wake up, do your daily work that you need to do based on your numbers, you know, on your connect rates and your connect to book in or connect to qualify. Like, understand what is required for you to get to target, and then work backwards from there and do the bare minimum to get to target. And it's not about doing the bare minimum to get to target to be lazy. It's about conserving energy, because this isn't like a 6-month career, right? It's like you should be stretching this timeline out to 10 years. And that's saying people always underestimate what they can get done in a decade and overestimate what they can get done in a year. I think it's so true. You know, if you're like in your 20s and you're looking into tech and thinking I can get into sales, you're not going to go away, read spin selling, read gap selling, read Sandler, read medic, and then be like a top performer in an enterprise company. It's literally not happening. Just like join, do your onboarding, do what you're told, see what other people are doing, copy them day by day by day by day by day, and it will compound. And then in terms of my coaching, so I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid. And it's very easy. I think more and more people now are getting diagnosed with some kind of neurodivergent, whether it's autistic or ADHD or ADD or whatever it may be. And I think it's really important to remember that like a label doesn't define you, and that a label is just a way to describe a certain behavior, right? So like when a kettle is boiling, it's only boiling when it's boiling. Like a kettle isn't boiling when the water's cold, and 5 minutes after it's boiled, it's not boiling anymore. As soon as that clicks off, it's stopped. So like ADHD, having the like being distracted or being hyperactive, is very like situational dependent. So if you get someone with ADHD and you stick them in front of Call of Duty, they will sit there focused for 15 hours, no worries. Or they'll watch like their favorite TV show. They'll watch like 6 episodes of Netflix, no worries. But if you ask them to read a scientific paper about hormonal imbalances, like if I don't care about that, they'll be like, oh, my ADHD, you know, that's why I can't concentrate on it. Like, it's not your ADHD, just fucking bored. That's what's happening, right? So one of the things that Nikki helped me do is to see my ADHD not as some kind of psychological disease or neurological imbalance, but instead it's enthusiasm and creativity tied with a lack of direction and a lack of desire. So it's like, I really want to be having fun in my day, and sitting and writing 100 emails doesn't really fill me with joy and happiness.
Sure.
Same as making 100 cold dials doesn't really fill me with joy and happiness. But overcoming 3 objections and booking a meeting and getting a really good demo qualified, that's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And the more I can sit down and go, right, I've got 100 chances, 100 shots at goal to book a demo with a sick company, versus I've got 100 dials to make now, which fills me with dread. So having that clarity and that direction changes like anxiety to excitement, and it changes overwhelm to creativity, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's been a really important thing, and something that, you know, you hear this all the time now, like ADHD is a superpower or whatever. And it's very woo-woo and very like nice to hear. But I think that everyone's uniqueness is able to be leveraged if you know how to leverage it. You know, like Usain Bolt would probably be a shit marathon runner. Doesn't mean he's a bad athlete.
Yeah. That's interesting take. And that's actually really valuable, actually, now you mention it, because I think a lot of people can relate. Lots of SDRs, BDRs can relate to that, especially the 100 calls. If you have that change of mindset, and I guess think about the excitement as opposed to the anxiety or the dread, that's gonna take you on leaps and bounds. Okay, and then you said it's pretty chaotic working for a startup. Would love to hear, you know, what it's like, and I guess the perks, the benefits. I know you were at President's Club, or you were flown out to Spain in the summer. So what are the perks of working at Air Focus, and what do you enjoy on a day-to-day outside of maybe the typical SDR 9 to 5?
Yeah, so it wasn't President's Club, unfortunately. I'd love to say it was, but it was just a company offsite. So it was our first company offsite, which was really cool. We're about a 50-person company, so it's only small. But yeah, actually, just to take it back a step further, when I was interviewing in the advanced stages for 2 different companies. One was Air Focus, and the other one was called Armis, and they're a huge cybersecurity company. And I really got to see like the dichotomy between the 2 like companies that I was interviewing for. Right, one of them is like everyone's very formal. No one's like using bad language. Everyone's in suits. They're all talking about like, you know, KPIs and metrics and all this type of thing. And it was like $1 billion valued company and amazing pay package, and like the onboarding and the SKO, the sales kickoff, was like in the Maldives or something. So it's like all these like shiny objects. I was like, oh, really nice. And then went to the Air Focus interview, and the head of sales turned up in like a shirt and a pink Ralph Lauren cap. And he was like swearing. He's this Scottish bloke with a tash. And he's like swearing and joking, and like was just like a bloke that I was speaking to. And it was really like, they didn't offer me as much pay, and they didn't offer me some incredible sales kickoff in the Maldives and staying in the 4 seasons. But they also didn't offer me like the corporate environment. That to me, I was like, balancing on one hand is I'm going to learn loads. There's clearly going to be a good structure there. I'm going to, you know, get lots of like mentorship and guidance. There was like the compulsory like 40 days a year or something of traveling around the world to like training and different things, like all these things that you think are going to be really nice from the outset. And on the other hand, it was like someone that I'm actually going to enjoy working with, someone I can laugh with, someone I can joke with, someone that like I'm going to enjoy turning up to work for. And I was really stuck between which company to work for. Unfortunately, Armis turned around at the last part of the interview and said, we've chosen to hire someone else because they've got a lot more experience. And that made a decision that I'm not sure I would have made the right decision. It forced the right decision on me. And that really was like a hugely beneficial part of my journey, I think, because working in a startup, I joined as an inbound SDR. 6 months later, I changed for an outbound SDR. A month and a half, 2 or 3 months later, I was an outbound SDR with all of the inbound trials that were coming in, and I had to then qualify or disqualify and then pass to account executives to work. Then I went back to an outbound SDR, purely an outbound SDR with a new territory. Then I went to an inbound SDR at the start of the year with all the inbound trials. And then 2 weeks after that, I was given outbound territories as well. So I've done like 5 different job roles in like 16 months. Yeah. And I work closely with like RevOps and with marketing, and I have some kind of input on how we can leverage data and how we can, I speak with like the content editor about blog post ideas that I've got after conversations with customers. And we went to Mallorca and had this offsite and had like 5 days of, we went on a boat and we had like a barbecue and champagne on a boat, and we had like a chef, and we were having like music and games every night, and we were drinking, and it just felt like I was there with friends. And then a couple of workshops on the side, And I think the thing with working in a startup is you get the opportunity to wear so many hats, and you get the opportunity to move in so many directions. Whereas if you join a big corporate company, my understanding is you join and like, here's your career path. Unless you decide at one point, I don't like this anymore and you want to change. But you can't just be like when I joined, I had 2 mentors that were SDRs. One of them is now full AE. She got promoted to a junior AE and a full AE in the last year. The other one has decided that she actually wants to move towards more product management work. So she's now balancing like an associate product manager role with an SDR role, and is doing those 2 things. And that wouldn't be possible in huge multinational corporations, because you're just so disconnected from all the other teams and siloed into where you're working, that you get more structure and you probably get a bit more pay. but I don't know. It's just not as fun.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's great. I mean, in a weird way, it worked out for you the way it did. I would always say trust your gut on things, but sometimes it's harder, right? If someone's offering you, up to 10, 15K more on an entry level role, but it sounded like in your case it's worked out really well, suits your personality. You've had that learning opportunity which you can't put a dollar price on, right? To
100%.
learn to go through different roles and have that exposure to maybe founders and senior leadership is really cool. Okay, I guess this is the Sales and Sports podcast. I don't want to segue too much into sports because I've been enjoying the hearing your journey. But you're a Liverpool fan, and so am I. So, what are your thoughts on Klopp? Why, number one, why is he leaving? Do you think it's to do with maybe burnout as well? That's a pretty important topic in our space. And yeah, who do you want in next? And what are your thoughts on Jurgen's time at Liverpool?
Yeah, well, I mean, undoubtedly the best manager I've ever seen at Liverpool. I actually remember working in the secondary school I was working in my hometown, and leaving to get on a bus to go home, and ringing my mum and being like, "Mum," my mum was a massive Liverpool fan. "Mum, we're getting Klopp. We're getting Klopp." And he'd just been with Borussia and had won, I think, the Europa or the Champions League. Had won, I think he came runner-up in the Champions League and then won the Bundesliga. And I remember mum being like, "Who?" I was like, "Klopp." And I remember vividly where I was stood and being absolutely buzzing on my little BlackBerry phone, looking at the fact that we were hiring him.
Really?
And I think, I mean, undoubtedly, like the passion and the energy that he's brought to the club has completely changed it, right? Like after Xabi Alonso and Gerrard and Jamie Carragher left, there was a little bit of a hole there. Like we had a few years with some shit transfers, and we was just a little bit lost and rudderless.
Yeah, and managers.
Yeah. And then he came in and just was, from the minute he came in, just was a whole new different type of like energy around the club, I think. Watched him in press conferences, watched him on the sidelines, watched him like celebrating the goals and speaking with the fans, and it's huge. And I think, from what he said, talking about burnout, it's what I actually heard him say something that I wanted to speak to you about. So he said, did you hear when he spoke about the analogy about a race car?
Yeah, about the tanks going down, but he's the only one who can tell, or something along those lines. Yeah, so he said he was saying to his wife that he feels like a race car, and he's in this race car driving along, and he's doing 180, 190 miles an hour. And from everyone else, they can all see that he's doing this speed, and everyone can see how well he's doing, how fast he's going. But he's the only person that can see the fuel tank is almost empty. And I thought that was such a great analogy for what burnout is, because it's not when you're doing that, when you're performing at such a high level, things get like catch up to you. Like if you miss half an hour of sleep one night, you'll be all right. If you miss half an hour of sleep for the next 16 months, you're in trouble. And I feel like as much as small positive daily actions can compound into massive results, small compound like bad habits compound into hugely negative outcomes as well. And I think that the idea that somebody who from the outside looks so positive, so energetic, so full of like vigor, can be just like wilting and withering inside, it's a really good reminder that, like, again, as I said on the sort of ADHD point, just because you feel like something's wrong with you, it's probably not the case. It's probably just that like there is something wrong and you're not the cause. Maybe your actions or your behaviors or habits are contributing, but like it's a very natural thing for us to feel exhausted if we've been redlining it for a long time. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it takes a lot of self-awareness from him to realize that, and then I guess remedy it. But no, he's going to be missed. An absolute legend of the game, and obviously for Liverpool. Who do you think who do you think should come in?
No idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Xabi looks pretty good, doesn't he? He's doing well with Leverkusen.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's Premier League's a different game.
You can never tell, can you? Because it's obviously such a big club, obviously from the outside, but once you're in there, it's a completely different beast. And hopefully, it's not too early for him. But
I'd love Stevie to come in, but
yeah,
I just don't want to see like a Lampard deal happen.
Yeah, true. I reckon give Stevie a couple more years. He seems quite happy in Saudi Arabia anyway.
Yeah,
he's sold off to the sunset. Good stuff. And then talk to me then, sales and sports. You were saying to me you're doing jiu-jitsu, or what are you doing at the moment? And how does that relate to your day-to-day work and what you're doing in tech sales?
Yeah, so jiu-jitsu is for people who don't know, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is like it's basically grappling and wrestling. If you watch UFC or Cage Warriors or any Joe Rogan podcasts, Lex Friedman podcasts, they will all speak about jiu-jitsu. And effectively, I've wanted to get into some kind of martial arts for a long time. I did boxing a bit when I was younger. I did a little bit of Muay Thai when I lived in Thailand. But there was something about jiu-jitsu that always pulled me in, and it's the way that people speak about jiu-jitsu as being like a physical game of chess. And I went to my first jiu-jitsu session in October, and it was really interesting because I don't know if you've ever gone to a martial arts session before, but it's fucking scary.
Is it? I bet.
Because you're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if I'm going to go in and these people are going to be really nice, or if someone's going to break my arm. Like, I don't know, you know? And I was a very scared little kid. I was always scared of confrontation. I was always scared of like getting beaten up and getting hurt and getting in fights. I was always scared of bigger men. And I've sort of carried that with me throughout my life. I've always used like humor to get out of sticky situations. I've always used like an I don't care attitude to run away from competition, which you probably didn't expect, but I would always be scared of competition. And if I thought there was a chance that I would lose, I'd really try to give this like outward image of not wanting to win anyway, because then when I lost, well, I didn't want to win anyway. Like, it wasn't even trying.
Didn't try.
Yeah. So this was sort of has always fed into my work life as well. And I would find that I wouldn't ask for the promotion, I wouldn't ask for the pay rise, because I wouldn't want to be the tall puppy that gets cut. And I wouldn't want my colleagues to think that I was being competitive and toxically masculine and all this shit. So jiu-jitsu for me was like a big test of, right, you're going to go do something scary. You're probably going to get hurt. You're probably going to get beaten up. Are you fucking willing to turn up and then to turn up again? And I went and really liked it. And on my, I think, 4th session, the coach said, "Oh, just so everyone knows, there's a competition in 2 months if anyone wants to sign up." And I just put my hand up. So I was like, if I don't say no now, I'm going to regret it. Like, I've come here to build some resilience, to build some grit, to build some self-confidence. So I put my hand up. So 2 months after starting, I went into a competition, won 2 fights, lost 1. And it has just completely changed my my sort of relationship with my own mindset and my own body as well. Like, I don't know if you've ever been choked out, but I now know the point that I go to sleep.
Really?
I never knew that before, but like now I know.
Yeah.
So like, if you get me in a really good chokehold, I've got 3-4 seconds that I can try and get out before panicking and tapping on your arm. But like 6 months ago, I didn't know that. And I didn't know how far a heel hook could take my ankle around before I'm really dangerously going to tap, or how far I can spin out of an arm bar before my arm breaks. And now I'm like getting a lot closer to understanding where that limit is. And I think understanding limits in your body whether it's through running or martial arts or meditation, understanding how your body reacts to different stimulus is really important for when you're working. So I know now that if I'm getting really stressed, the worst thing I can do is open my phone. What I need to do is bang out 50 press-ups. And then I'm way less stressed, or go for a run, or do something that like, or go and play with my daughter. And I feel like jiu-jitsu has like opened it's opened this like continual learning, because I'm a white belt. And if I'm lucky, in 10 years, I'll be a black belt. If you're lucky, you know. So it's like a huge long time horizon thing. So I think there's lots of parallels that you can take from a sport like jiu-jitsu that relates to sort of everyday life.
That's really cool, because I guess you don't know what you don't know till you try something, and then it's constantly trying to evolve and improve. And I definitely agree, right? Any physical exercise is going to solve the majority of the problems if you're stressed or anxious, right? Even going for a walk for like 30 minutes, or I think running is just the best thing you can do. Cool. Well, I know we're nearly out of time. So if you could go back 18 months and do it all over again, would you do anything different? Are you still happy that you chose this path in tech sales, and how has it impacted your life, and what's next for you, really?
Definitely wouldn't change anything ever in my whole life. I think those little butterfly effects are way underestimated, you know. So yeah, I don't think I'd ever change anything. But in terms of going back and looking at being in tech, if I could do it all over again, I'd probably tell myself, or if I could speak to my younger self, go back to when I started, I'd tell myself to like have a little bit more of like an easy way of dealing with yourself, because it's really easy to beat yourself up, right? And when you're getting no, fuck off, don't call me, where'd you get my number, all day, and then you beat yourself up at the end of the day, it's really easy to spiral. And I think that where do I see myself? Well, I want to get promoted to an AE this year. I want to keep learning. I want to keep improving. I want to get a blue belt at jiu-jitsu. I want to at some point buy a house and have some land for my kids to run around and play with chickens in. I want to, just keep developing and keep learning in all aspects of life. And I think that if that's the way that you want to approach your life, sales is a good place to be, because if you stop learning, you start dying.
Awesome, man. Well, that's a pretty epic way to finish. Where can people find you? I guess like LinkedIn, and any closing remarks on if people are looking to break into tech sales, what advice should you give? And where's the best place to reach out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's fine. Michael Field, find me in there. Should be pretty easy to find me, or type in Michael Air Focus. You'll find me there as well. And then anyone that's looking to break in, like I think I said this when I was on the call as well. Like, what are your other options? Like if you want to make more money, if you want to have less financial stress, don't start a fucking drop shipping company. What else are you going to do? Go and ask your fucking boss if you can get paid 50 grand a year for serving tables in a restaurant. You're not going to have that, and maybe there's a way to serve tables in the top restaurant in New York City and earn 150 grand a year, maybe for like 4 people in the world. I don't know, but like the amount of money that comes in from sales across all industries, whether that's in tech or solar or cars or whatever, like if you want to feel purpose in a job and you want to make money, sales is really the place to be, because you can partner with a company that sells a service or a product that you really care about and that has a real impact in the world. If you want to make loads of money in other ways as an entrepreneur, you can speak to this, Jack. Fucking good luck. It's exhausting and it's really hard. And people will often speak about the layoffs in tech and the fact that as an employee, your employer doesn't care about you. But as an entrepreneur, no one cares about you. So that's even tougher way to do it. And then if you want to have purpose and you don't care about money, go work for an NGO, work for charity. That's a good way to do it. But you're never going to be rich unless you're one of those slimy fucks that earns £1 million off a charity.
Yeah, a lot of those. But no, you're right. I think as a saying goes, probably a good way to wrap: give a man a fish, it'll feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, it'll feed him for life, right? So if you learn sales, you can go anywhere with it. You can work in tech, work in other industries. If you start a business one day, it's like probably the most important skill to have in business. So, mate, it's been a pleasure having you on. We still need to get that beer. It's crazy we haven't met up in person yet. Hopefully Liverpool finish the season strong. Good luck in Hamburg next week.
Yep.
Good luck in Hamburg. Enjoy that. And yeah, excited to watch you step into that AE role soon, because I know it's happening. And yeah, appreciate you coming on and being part of the Entr Tech journey as well.
Appreciate it, mate. Always a pleasure.
Take care, mate.
See ya.
Yeah.